Hello and happy Friday, everybody. Wow, we just got people rolling in. We are so excited to be here and to be collaborating together. And we are just going to get started as soon as we kind of get a feel for enough people in. People are just tumbling in, and it's only just now 4. So we'll get started in just a couple minutes. We'll have slides for you guys. We have the chat enabled. So please feel free to say hi, introduce yourself, what your practice area is, what your city is. You know, let's make some connections and network a little while we are waiting. And we got something great for you. Okay.
So we got a message from Lugar from Roanoke. I'm actually from Burke, Virginia. So only people from Virginia would have heard of Burke.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know that
No one's heard of Burke.
Don't know that I can relate. Hi, welcome. Welcome, Megan. Hi.
So Megan and I have been in touch a lot on Facebook. She does practice family law and I practice family law. One of the books that I'm recommending has been written by a family law and estate planning attorney. So we tried to source information from various areas of practice. I'm exclusively family law. Sonia does trademarks. This book that I think you guys all should read, she does estate planning and family. A lot of criminal defense attorneys have been doing flat fees for years. So it's really something that can be kind of applied unilaterally or universally. That's what I mean.
There are so many people who have adapted the stuff that we're going to talk about today to their own practice areas, and some more creatively than others. Some lend themselves better than others, but it's definitely something that can be done in sub-capacity depending on what you do. And that's our hope for today. One of our goals is to at least leave you with that it's a possibility, it's worth exploring and considering, and to give you some tangible tips and ideas on how to actually do it. So, we're trying to stay away from theory. We're going to give you guys some actual stuff that you can use. If you've taken anything I've taught before, I don't believe in fluff and bullshit. Like we're going to give you guys real stuff. And, we're happy to be of service for you guys. Welcome, everybody. Wow, people are just tumbling right in. This is so exciting. This is so great. It's proof that people are willing to learn at 4 p.m. on a Friday.
That's true. Can someone drop a note and just make sure that you guys can see and hear me as well?
Yes. Can you see and hear Regina and Sonia? If there's an issue with that, okay, good. Slides are coming, but we figure we'll get to that when we do. And we're saving like formal introductions and stuff until there's like, a good chunk of people in. Maybe like 6 or 7 minutes after the hour, because I just want to make sure everyone has a chance to like use the link and get in. Hello, hello. If you're just joining, welcome.
Ooh, immigration law.
Oh, interesting. Okay. We have the online chat. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a lot of attorneys in Georgia that practice immigration and family law. It's kind of a nice marriage of the two. I get a lot of clients with family law issues that also have immigration law issues. So it's kind of a nice mix if people want to add practice areas to their practice, even if it's just in a limited scope, because sometimes people with immigration issues may be about to be deported and need an uncontested divorce very quickly, or someone's trying to stay in the country and there's issues with a divorce because someone's alleging fraud, which obviously would hurt someone who's trying to stay in the country. You can take on those cases as well instead of having to farm them out. So June has joined. June Lynn. June practices in Georgia where I am as well. Hi, June.
Welcome. Yeah, if you're just joining, welcome. We're glad to have you. Just use the online chat, locate it, introduce yourself, who you are, what area you practice, what city. Let's get to know each other a little bit, since we're all here for a little bit of time.
So Sharmila, I've had cases, I think I had one case against Sharmila, which ended up being a complete nightmare, but she does immigration and family, and it's kind of a nice marriage for her. I know Mel as well. Yep, she does. I didn't know she did immigration as well, but yeah, I knew she did criminal and family law.
I'm extending a large virtual hug to anyone who does immigration in this day and age, and in
oh my goodness, I could never.
Times,
I could never.
A virtual hug from me to you, and also like if we ever are in the same city, like let me buy you a drink because damn, you might need it. Like, jeez. No,
so
but
Keisha's from DC and Maryland, and she does family law and estate planning. You definitely should pick up that book from the attorney who wrote it. I believe it was published in May of 2019. Let me look it up. But she does family and estate planning, and she talks about, her name is Britta Long, Brita Long, and she talks extensively about how she structured her flat fees, and I honestly think estate planning is one of the #1 areas that you can do it, especially if it's non-litigation, because you can time date it, and that's what this attorney does. So Madeline is opening soon in Central Florida. Congratulations. Yay, that's so exciting. It was like a million years ago when I started my own firm, but I think it's been, oh gosh, since 2005. So wow, 14 years.
you will love it.
So Madeline asked the name of the book, and it's in the slides, but it's called The Happier Attorney, a comprehensive guide to charging flat fees for legal services. So there is a page with suggested reading that comes towards the end. But yeah, you can check it out. And I purchased it for 99 cents. So hopefully it's available to everybody at that rate.
All right, we got 42 people. Love it. This is awesome.
Keisha asked the name of the book. I'm just going to type it in the chat, and it's also, like I said, in the slides as well. It's called Britta Long, The Happier Attorney. But there's, I think I listed 6 books for you guys to read. This is just someone that's actually doing it right now, and she's been practicing for 19 years, so that's a good perspective. But we've also given you some names of some other books as well from people in different areas. One I really like, it's pretty expensive for a Kindle book. I think it's around $50. By Ron Baker, though, it's alternative pricing for professionals. It's not written strictly for attorneys. It's written for just all professionals, accountants, etc. But it gives a really good historical background for why flat fees are a good idea, or alternative billing, and it really kind of gets into the psychology of why flat fees and alternative fees are just kind of the wave of the future. Oh, great. Janelle says it's still 99 cents. Yay. I was excited. Awesome. And I believe she has a Facebook group that is, I just joined today, which is designated just for flat fees. So she's got some stuff on her page about how she's implemented it and all of that. We got 46 so far.
Love it. All right. Yeah, I think maybe just another minute or so, and then we'll get started.
I'm going to shut this window behind me because there's glare.
Okay, let's get rolling here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see the slides that we have for you. Ooh, okay, let's see. All right, so this is where we want technology to all come together. Can you all still hear, see both of us and see the slides? Yes?
Okay, great.
Oh, good.
Put this in the corner.
Awesome. Because, you know, technology, I don't know about the rest of you, technology is my personal kryptonite. It just does not let me be great. Every time I try to do something that I have an idea about, there's technology to come ruin it. Even though it's also like what we credit the success of our practices to. Also, I would never be able to do half the crazy shit I do if I wasn't technologically savvy. But anyways, all right. Welcome everybody to Flat Fee is not an F word. Yes, I came up with the title because I like to curse. So we're glad to have you. In case you're curious, this is a completely free webinar. That's it. It's just going to be completely free. We just wanted to share some of our knowledge with you. We are all boss ladies for the most part in here, and we didn't heavily market it. Regina and I have been talking for a while about wanting to do this. We are both pretty actively and vocal about the way we run our practices, them being virtual, paperless, flat fee based, and respectively, it has allowed us to really lead kind of an amazing lifestyle because of those procedures and systems we've put in place and having a policy around flat fees. And we'll talk more about that. But we're here. We just started noticing over time that there are a lot of questions around this area. We know that we both do it. And we thought we would just put together our knowledge for you guys. And that's all. So we hope you enjoy it and that you find value from it. And, you know, if you hate it and, you know, want to X out, we totally understand. But we're just happy to do it and share some information with you. So that being said, the online chat will be open. You are not interrupting us if you have a question or like a comment. Like, we'd love for there to be like an interactive component to this, given that we're all online, as much as we can make it. So please feel free to chime in if you love something, hate it, agree, you know, anything you want. As questions relate to what we're talking about, she and I are happy to fold those in. And if they're completely unrelated or off topic, we will also reserve time at the end for a Q&A. So please feel free. And again, one last reminder that you will get the replay and the slides in case you want them. So the slides have linkable, clickable links on them. And so if you need to look at something, read, watch, whatever. So the idea and the goal here is for you to just be able to relax, enjoy on a Friday, learn something, and don't be stressed about trying to write it down. You'll get the replay and you'll get the slides. And just from the goodness of our hearts to yours. So that's all. Just happy to do a service here. So that being said, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sonia Lakhani. I run a trademark law practice that is based out of Atlanta, Georgia. In addition to the practice, I have also been teaching for the last several years in the area of teaching other attorneys how to file trademarks. So many of you are alumni of my 2 Weeks to Trademarks course, where I teach other attorneys how to do my practice area and therefore unlock a whole bunch of autonomy and freedom, because it is one of the best areas, I think, to practice. So I've started teaching. I wrote a book in this area for potential clients, and I speak on it all the time, and I love what I do. So, so that's me, and I'll let Regina introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Regina Edwards. I practice family law in Georgia. Sonia and I thought this would be a good seminar for us to do together because she is transactional and I am litigation. So a lot of the pushback I get against flat fees is there's just no way that it can work for litigation, but it can work for litigation. So we'll talk about that. I have been practicing for 18 years and I've been flat fee in family law for 11, and I'm still alive. So that means it's working. I think it's working, and I'm much happier than I was when I was billing by the hour.
All right, so just a little background on each of us. I own my own practice. I've been doing almost exclusive trademark filings for about 10 years. I've been lucky and fortunate enough to be featured for my work among some really great media outlets, and just to be able to share more about what I do, which is why I started teaching a few years ago. I like having a variety of free and paid content. I think it's important to showcase your knowledge and help other attorneys, you know, and to the extent that we want to better ourselves, you know, I really enjoy it. And for those of you who are in and around Atlanta, I am an Emory alum, the law school, but I'm originally from Southern California, in case anyone is joining from the West Coast. And I now live in Manhattan, actually. Again, a testament to, and I will keep coming back to this because it is the core of my why, is the flexibility. I woke up one day last year wanting to be like Carrie in Sex and the City, like, oh, I think it'd be fun to live in Manhattan. And I just did. I asked no one for permission. I made no prior arrangements. I just woke up and came here for a month, which turned into like 3 or 4 months because I was not done playing around, and now it's been a year and nothing has changed in terms of my practice structure, my team. Everyone's remote. They always, for the most part, have been. I travel around and I'm not even in New York half the time. I'm in some other country bullshitting around, and it's what's referred to as lifestyle design. I wanted a life where I could be in control of my own time and not be bound by a billable hour. And we'll talk more about this, but it just depends on what your why is, right? Maybe you'll spend more time with your kids or your family with more free time. Maybe you'll take more time for yourself. Maybe you'll sleep. Maybe you'll travel. Whatever it is, I'm sure almost all of us could benefit from some mental clarity and time to be free with, again, regardless of how you choose to use it. It's kind of like more money. Like you could do what you want with yours and I'll do, but we can all benefit from more of it, I'm sure. So that's a little bit about me. And I'll let Regina give more background about herself as well.
So I kind of got into, like I said, I've done flat fees for 11 years, but I didn't think in terms of, I thought I was tied to my office in litigation. And I read one of the books that I'm recommending reading. A lot of you have heard of it. It's by Tim Ferriss. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek. And honestly, I know it sounds cliche, but it really changed my life. It really made me know that it's possible that pretty much any job can be done remotely. So in 2015, I kind of semi-retired. I moved to Arizona for 6 months, didn't really do anything. It was fabulous. And then I didn't want to leave. So I continued to run my Georgia practice, my Georgia litigation practice from Arizona for the next, it was about 2.5 years. So I've recently moved back to Atlanta, but I'm in Arizona now, as you can probably see from the tacky background. I'm in I rent a condo in the summer, a furnished condo in the summer. I'm the only person that likes to come to Arizona during summer, but that's where I am and that's what I like to do. So I spend the majority of my summers in Arizona while still running my practice in Georgia. So that's me.
You could be anywhere. I mean, Regina and I have communicated while she's been on some like spa retreat. I was like, well, I'm going to be in Mykonos. And she's like, where are you going after this? And it's just like, it doesn't actually matter where you physically are. I've been to like 10 countries this year alone, and we're only in September. And I got more on deck. I was in Europe for half the summer on and off. Like, it's just, there's no cap to what you can do. And like I said, even if traveling or being remote or exploring is not your thing, equally, it could be applied to more time with your family, loved ones, friends, yourself. Like, how crazy of a thought is that? Just time for yourself, right? If you change nothing else. So we hope that you will be motivated to make some changes as well, to try to get to that. So I always work best when I feel like I know where things are going and what I'm in for. So here's just a kind of a roadmap of what we want to talk about today. And it mirrors what was on the sign up page, so nothing crazy here. But first we'll talk about flat fees, the benefits of having them compared to hourly fees, how to adapt them to your particular practice area, because as Regina mentioned, there is a lot of hesitation and skepticism, I would say, around certain areas and whether it's even possible. And really just then getting into kind of the structure of how to put them together and make sure that you get paid, because let's not be crass, but money's important. We all run a business. Secondly, we'll get into how to go paperless, running a virtual practice that allows for you to pitter patter around the world and living your best life. So apps, best practices, what we each do for that to keep the load low. Then how to keep your expenses low, because we all know that it's not how much you make, it's how much you save. So it doesn't matter how high your revenue is if your expenses are out the door. So we're going to teach you how to plug some of those leaks, what you can get rid of, what you need, don't need, and getting into some software and some automation. Then we'll get into a concept that may surprise some of you, but just because money's green doesn't mean it's good. All money is not good money, and we're going to talk about why. Then, personally, I'm excited about this because you can virtually raise your hand if you have kept hearing about Profit First and how great it is, and you just haven't gotten around to it, or if you're like me, it's sitting on your nightstand, half read, somewhat skimmed, and you just never got around to it. So Regina is an expert She's applied the principles and she's going to walk us through. That's her portion, one of her portions.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've definitely read it and I've applied it, and I absolutely love it. I love the system.
It may save you from reading it, or maybe it'll motivate you to actually read it yourself, but at least you'll get the gist of it, because we talk about it a lot in Boss Lady. Next, we'll wrap up with recommended tools, apps, resources that you can explore, use more, and then lastly, a Q&A session in case we didn't get to your question along the way. So, okay, part one, flat fees versus hourly fees. So hourly fees, right, is kind of what we've been taught as, as we were young and even in law school, right? If you were interning or different classes you took or panels you would go, it's like, by nature, a lawyer and the way that it's taught is you're trading time for money. I show up at my job, I sit at my desk, I build, I work on something for an hour, so I get paid for that hour. And we're getting paid well, like in the hundreds, right? So it's not like it's bad. But the problem with that is that if you don't work for any reason, sick, life happens, you don't feel like it, you want to travel, whatever it is, your income is capped and in direct correlation to, right, how many hours you are working. And as you might imagine, that creates kind of a limitation. We suspect that because you're here, you have arrived upon that limitation in some way, like, yeah, this isn't all it's cracked up to be, right? If you have hours upon hours to expend, then hourly fees are great. If you don't give a shit about your personal quality of life, great, right? But that's just not sustainable. And you're certainly not gonna have a great quality of life. And really, you're gonna be tied to it. And I think it makes for some unhappy lawyering. So number one, the big problem there is there's just a cap on how much money you can make, right? There's only one of you, right? And even if you have other people, there's only so many hours among the attorneys that you have, if you have any others. And there's only so many hours in a day. So if you bill per hour, right? Like there's just so many hours, you can't create more time. The other big thing is that it requires a constant tracking and administration of invoices, sending out payments and reminders. And then assuming you get through all that, right? Then you have the client being like, oh, that's a lot of time for whatever. I didn't realize I was going to get charged for that call. Or, I didn't realize that an email would cost this. And you're just like, and I got to keep reminding you and and then cards get declined. And it keeps halting your progress on a matter, right? Like you haven't gotten paid for like the next stage or what you've already done. You're like, do I really want to keep showing up to court for this person who's ignoring my invoices? But like, I kind of have to because I can't, I can't not show up. So it creates a lot of bottlenecking, right? It creates a lot of bottlenecking in the progress of your clients' matters, which is a huge priority, obviously. And it creates a lot of bottlenecking and pausing and stop and go in your own progress and quality of life. Again, quality of life is something that I'm going to keep coming back to because that is one of the tenets of this entire webinar, right? Like the assumption is that you want a better quality of life or you want to maintain it. So like, that's why switching to flat fees is so important. And so that's kind of a quick primer on, why they suck. The hourly fees suck. Flat fees, on the other hand, they're amazing in many, many ways, right? So predictability for all. For clients, they get predictability as in like, oh, we like the idea of all-inclusive. You think of yourself as a consumer when you think about a cruise or a ticket to some event, right? Like alcohol's included, it's open bar, or, all-inclusive, like you get your, you get dinner, you get 2 drinks, you know exactly what you're getting. And it's just, then you can just enjoy the experience, right? You can just rest and have that peace of mind. And I think clients are more willing to pay for that predictability and therefore peace of mind, right? So they can have a budget, they know where it fits, they've paid you, and now they're done, right? Same for you. You have predictability in the sense that now you can project your revenue. You know how much money I'm assuming that you want to make, right? Or how much more you want to make, or what you need to meet your basic bills or overhead. And we'll talk about tweaking that later to make sure it's low as possible, right? But you can calculate pretty easily and say, okay, how many new matters as opposed to new clients or hours do I need to bring in to make my numbers? Because if you think about like your dream income monthly, right? And you divide that by your hourly rate, mathematically, I'm almost positive there are not enough hours in the day or in the week. So how are you planning on, are you ever going to get to that number? You bring somebody else on, but you can't create more time, unfortunately, right? And so there's a huge, huge limitation there. And it's a lot more feasible to calculate new matters, whether they're with a repeated client or a new client altogether, and work that you're going to do and perform rather than hours needed to bill. Because maybe you bring a new matter and it's quick and you're like, man, I did all that administration of setting up the file and doing all this, and it's like a 3-hour affair, right? Versus the same administration, setting up and whatever is matter by matter. So it's just from an efficiency standpoint, a lot more desirable. And once you do systematize, which we'll talk about that, because Regina and I both love our systems, although I will give her first place on being the expert. That you got to say you're the expert on that. Like, come on, maybe not profit first if you don't want to admit it. She's very, very modest. So I'm going to have to boost her, but like, yo, don't nobody know systems like Regina Edwards knows systems. Can I get an amen in the chat for those of you who follow Regina in Boss Ladies? Like, she's too modest to take credit for it, right? Yeah, see, you got some fans, Regina. You got some fans. I knew it. I don't have a problem touting where I'm good, but I'll tout where Regina's good too. She's on top of her systems. And so we're going to talk about that, obviously. And so whether you take one new matter / case or several, the effort expended on your part doesn't like catapult to like 100-hour work week all of a sudden. Well, obviously, yes, there's more time spent in your eyes, looking at more files, perhaps, but not proportionally as you may think or that we're trained to think, right? You get paid up front, and this is my personal favorite. You get to be the steward. Hold on. Regina got muted somehow. Okay, there she goes. All right.
Okay, I'm back.
The chat is, for some reason, I'm going to just make a tweak on my screen because the chat was hidden for some reason. Okay, there we go. All right, so yeah, so you get paid up front, and then you get to be the steward of your own time. And so you decide, the workload, how it gets done, when, what steps are needed, and just the entire process from start to completion of the life cycle of the matter. And guess what? I'm, willing to put forth that you don't need to do everything on a file in one day, right? And so you can chart that out, and that is how, one of the reasons ways that you can build in a Wednesday where you don't do shit, because you're like, Monday and Tuesday we've charted for this, Thursday, Friday will be for that, and guess what? No harm, no foul. I left office on a Friday and it's all good. I didn't feel like doing any work today. It's all good because you're the steward of the timeline. And as long as you maintain client expectations and are clear about how you're going about it and what the expectation of the process is going to be, like timeline wise, right? Like, okay, thank you. We've received your payment. We've received your electronic signatures. You can expect X on X date. How you get it done is up to you, right? You can pull an all-nighter the night before and take the 4 days preceding off. You can do it right away and then take the 4 days off, or you can do a hybrid of both, but that is how you build in these like amazing little holidays and vacations and personal times and stuff. And last but not least, certainly, there's no time wasted tracking your time using billing software. There's a cost saved, obviously, on billing software. I don't even have it, so I don't know how much it costs, but I imagine it's probably $100 or something a month, that you don't want to pay. So there's a lot here in terms of pros and cons. But I'm going to pause and let Regina add anything that she's got on this slide before we move on.
Well, as someone who has billed both hourly and flat fee, I can tell you the biggest difference is when I was working for a firm, and they actually had a pretty, what I think is conservative billable hourly requirement, which was only $1,600 a year, which I think is pretty modest. Even then, I still felt pressured when I was off or during the weekend that I should be billing. Anytime I wasn't doing anything anytime I was doing anything else, I just felt I should be billing. And I didn't like having that feeling. So I decided to go to flat fees. And I just really don't have that issue anymore, because my value of what I do and what I provide to my clients is not based on the time that it takes to do it. And that's the biggest thing for people to kind of get their heads around is I don't need you to pay me for my time, frankly, because I've spent 19 years figuring things out, and I can do in 5 minutes what other people might take a little bit longer. So it doesn't make sense that someone that takes a little longer and takes hours and hours to figure something out would get paid more versus me, where I know the answer right away. I can, do it in 30 minutes. I should get paid less. So there's just kind of this constant battle between paying for time and paying for value. And it's just a mindset shift into, you want your clients to pay for the value that you bring to the case and to their lives, and not just the time that it takes for you to do something.
Let's just do a quick little temperature check in with everybody. Like, are you guys with us so far? Like, you can just put a 1 in the chat to make it easy. 1, like, okay, I'm with you. We're here. We're rocking.
Yay.
Okay, that's what I like to see. Some good ones. All right. So far, so good. Okay, so problems with hourly billing, right? Continued. So this is Regina's analogy, so I'm going to let her lead it. But this makes a lot of sense if you really think about it. So when I read it and went over it, I was like, damn, I've never heard it explained that way, but I really like it.
Right, and Britta brought up a good point. If you are not muted, go ahead and mute. Everyone but Sonia and I needs to be muted, because sometimes I think people are picking up some background noise. So this is an analogy, and by Regina's analogy, it means Regina stole it from someone else, and I gave him credit. So there's a blog called Law Gives, and Robert, I don't know how to pronounce it, Fojo, gave this really great analogy, and I think it works. So if you go to the grocery store and you buy a gallon of milk, and someone says, we really don't know how much it is, and it might increase by the time you get to the register, are you still going to buy it? And the answer is usually no. And it always just bothered me that when it came to legal services, I can't think of anything else in life where you don't know what something will cost. Even when you sign a mortgage, they give you that scary sheet that shows you by the end of the mortgage payment, this is the amount of money that you're going to pay, including with interest. It's certain. And I don't see why we haven't really come to the conclusion that we can add some certainty to flat fees. So I do think there's a big misconception about flat fees. So for example, I do family law. So I think people kind of hear flat fee and they think I'm saying to a client, hey, give me $1,000 and I'll do your entire contested litigation case. Clearly that's not what we're doing. So we'll give you a couple of different options about how to structure the flat fees. But the key is it's the value that you're providing to the client. And another big key is clients will pay for predictability. So I say to them all the time, look, it's not cheap. I'm not one of the cheapest attorneys in Atlanta, and I shouldn't be, because I've been practicing for 18 or 19. I don't know, I've lost count, 18 or 19 years. Pretty good at what I do. I'm exclusively family law. So no, it's not cheap. But it is predictable, at least. You know at the beginning of the case how much money you will spend if the case goes all the way to trial. And clients really appreciate that. My favorite clients that I have, and I get a lot of these, is where I take over a case midstream. I love taking over cases midstream for a variety of reasons. So if someone has parted ways with the previous attorney and they've been hourly, they at least know what hourly billing looks like. And there's nothing inherently, evil about hourly billing. And I know you guys are out there making a living doing hourly billing, and you're not, fee churners or intentionally inflating the bills. That's fine. But it's still, clients just have a hard time getting bills that they just don't expect. They don't know how much work we do, honestly. And they're always surprised by it. So there's always going to be that kind of conflict. And I know you guys out there are reducing your bills, you're cutting your bills, you're explaining to your client why things are taking so long. Sometimes the bill is higher because the other side is doing things. You're doing all the right things that you can possibly do within the constraints of hourly billing. And sometimes the clients still have a problem because it's unexpected. And that's something that flat fees can address. So someone asked, how do you price? And that's a great question, and we're going to get to that later.
That is a huge question. We'll talk about that.
So in terms of some other problems with hourly billing, like I said, inefficiency gets rewarded. And again, I know we're not talking about, the guy in this chat, but we all know attorneys. I'm sure we could all list them. I mean, don't, but I'm sure we could. The ones that we call fee churners, the ones that see a big pot of money and they just churn, file depot after depot after depot after depot. Or sometimes if someone is inexperienced, sometimes it takes them a little longer to do something, and the client pretty much is paying for them to get caught up on an area of law. So just the inherent problem with hourly billing is that inefficiency gets rewarded. There's no built-in reward monetarily for developing efficient systems. So when you are billing flat fee, that really incentivizes you to work efficiently, especially me, because quite frankly, the less work I do, the more than I get paid. So obviously, sometimes people have the perception that, flat fee attorneys will just take a fee and just not do anything because they want to get more money. Well, if that's the way that you practice law, you shouldn't be practicing law in general. That doesn't really have anything to do with, the method of billing. That just means you're lazy. So that's not it. What we do is I've created systems that make it very, very easy for me to deliver legal services without a lot of hands-on time. So if you guys are a member of my Facebook group, which I will drop in the chat, hold on, which is Lawyer on the Beach. It's purely dedicated to systems. I'm a little bit of a systems junkie. It's probably unhealthy, but I have tried every single practice management system out there. I've just done them all. And I've decided that I don't need a practice management system. What I needed was a robust task system. So I use Monday.com for that. So it makes it very, very easy for me to delegate things to my intake coordinator and to my paralegal to get things done. I use, and I believe I have this later in a slide, it's also on my page, but I use LawYaw for document automation. So I can, when someone hires me, I can bang out 5-6 documents in 20 minutes flat and I'm done. I use Ignite to store my files. I use clinked.com, which is a portal. So I just have a system in place for pretty much every single area of delivery of services to my clients, and which makes it efficient, but really doesn't require a lot of hands-on time with me. So we've discussed how clients hate big bill surprises, and obviously sometimes there's fee disputes. If you've ever been through a fee dispute, it's not fun. I have been through a fee dispute, but it was very easy for me because it was a flat fee, and it says you pay X amount on this date and you pay X amount on this date, and the fee arbitration committee couldn't understand why everybody was there because it was so clear. With hourly bills, people will just go through your bill and rip them to shreds. And it's just another thing that you have to deal with. We talked about having to track your time. Sometimes there is a distrust from the client that knows the longer you work on the case, the more you get paid, which is a fact. That doesn't necessarily mean you are intentionally doing more work to get paid more, but sometimes that can be the perception. And as we all know, sometimes perception is reality. And also the problem with hourly billing is everyone's billing hourly. I have gotten, I want to say 3 or 4 really good referrals this year alone from fellow family law attorneys. Thank you guys. When potential clients call them and say, you know what, I've heard a lot of great things about you, but I really don't want to pay hourly. And they say, well, look, we don't really know that many flat fee attorneys. I really only know 1 or 2 who does it and does it, and they do it well. So I get some of those referrals because there just really aren't a lot of people doing it in my area. Sonia, can you move to the next one?
All right, so yes, one of the major questions and comments and everything else we get is, well, that might work for your area, but not mine. Or like, there's, unfortunately, I'm in this practice field and it's not gonna work. Software, thank you for the question about software. We will get to that. We have thought, I think, through most of the stuff you guys are gonna wanna know, and we've packaged it all up in like a certain flow. But we absolutely will share with you guys all kinds of software systems, recommendations, and tools throughout, and then definitely toward the end. So yes, practice area does matter. Regina and I are teaming up on this because we have vastly different practice areas, and that's why we wanted to deliver this to you. But I'm the first person to say that, yeah, like if you don't like your practice area for any number of reasons, then it's never too late to change. And it's never too late to consider even adding something new on and gradually transitioning to it. So a lot of you here and a lot of the women in Boss Ladies are alumni of my 2 Weeks of Trademarks program. And I have gotten so many emails and messages and testimonials from people who have taken that class. It's a multi-video class with templates and everything. And I essentially teach you how to file trademarks and how to learn a new practice area that is just easier and better and far less stressful with no drama. And so, there's that to consider. You don't have to, but it can't hurt to consider learning something new that you can offer and gradually transition to, so that I will start by saying that, yes, it factors in how easily you can apply flat fees to what you do factors into what you practice. That being said, we are going to talk about some of the less traditionally thought of areas, and that's going to be more of Regina's side of the slide. But in terms of entity formations, operating agreements, contracts, obviously trademarks, like I said, and just deals, mergers, anything kind of more business and transactional related, If you're already offering these services to your clients, if that's the type of attorney you are, you know typically how long something takes, right? Because you've done them before, right? I mean, unless this is your first year in practice, which of course will give you a break for that. But if you've done at least 5 or 6 of them by now for a client or for over the last couple of years, you have a general idea of how long this stuff's going to take, right? You've sent invoices out, I'm assuming, because you got paid, right? You've done the work. And so, really take an audit and an inventory and say, okay, if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm starting a new business. Tell me, I don't know what I need, or tell me all the things. So maybe you don't have packages set up, right? And that's something that we're going to talk about, because it would behoove you to really think about the things that go together. Kind of like when you order food, not that like we're McDonald's or anything, but think about the efficiency of the restaurant industry, right? Like combos and, one main and add 2 sides sort of thing. So it would behoove you to really consider packaging and like a menu of your services. And we'll talk about that later. But, even if you don't, and you're just doing thing by thing, that if someone comes to you for a startup thing that they're doing, that they're going to need an entity formation, they're going to need an operating agreement, they need an EIN, all these things. Maybe they have a partnership agreement, whatever's involved in that, right? They probably wanted to have a conversation about the trademark and protecting their business name. So what's involved and how long it takes. So that step 1 of thinking about your time spent versus the hours, right? Like you can easily compare the number of hours you typically spend, give or take, and kind of round it out and create a flat fee that it's not going to be per email or per interaction with a client, but you build in that time to then create, one fee that is paid up front for the execution of X, Y, and Z. And that's where the importance of having client expectations and policies and good template emails, so people know this is what I'm getting, this is what this includes. I've gone a step further and clarified what is not included, right? Because that's really important. And that way they understand, these are my parameters. Again, I will acknowledge, and Regina will talk about this, that the types of clients that are in bullet 1 where Sonia is versus the bullet 2 where Regina is, like the types of clients on both do differ, right? I don't have people calling and crying to me or trying to scheme at their ex or create, craziness on social media that has to be dealt with. Like that is not something I deal with. But I'm going to insert a shameless plug here. That is also why I practice trademark law, because it's drama free. Like I'm just saying. So, we can talk another time later on or whatever. This is not meant to be related to that. But if you want to learn a new practice area, you want something, truly drama free, the business side is just logically, the way to go. It doesn't mean you can't contain those expectations and calls and texts and things and like that. But, you do need to build in, some sort of communications policy, regardless of what side of the line you're on, if you're on the business side or on the individual line. And that is how you start to control and reel in these like repeated emails. It can be something as simple as like an autoresponder, like, thank you so much for your email. If you are a client requesting a status update on your matter, please allow me 48 hours to pull your file and get back to you on a status, right? Or if you are a client, or if you are inquiring about a new matter, please use the link to schedule a consultation with me and choose a time that works best for you. Like that autoresponder is going out as you might be in Bali or wherever, and people are directing themselves so that the emails that you are left, and this is a micro example, right, of systems to your advantage. As you're moving around and stuff, people are self-directing in the bucket they're supposed to go to, and what you might be left with is a lot less, right? So again, managing those expectations and making it clear from the beginning. You can't just throw down a communications policy later on, right? But that's why it really helps to have a structure in the beginning of this is what I'm going to provide, and this is what you get, and this is how we're handling calls and emails. Like this is how we do it, right? And
hey, Sonia, Mel has a suggestion.
I just saw that.
If you can mute everybody.
Let me see if I can do that. Hang on. I don't know if it gives me that option.
I can see who's muted and who's not. So I don't want to call people out.
All right, done. Can you guys still hear me though? I just did a blanket mute. Oh yeah, bye. All right, I can't hear anything now besides the sound of my own voice. But let me unmute Regina though. My bad.
Okay, I'm back. So I do want to. So I do want to say the number one pushback that I get, especially with me practicing family law, is people ask all the time about there's no way it can be done in family law. My clients call me 10 times a day. They email me 10 times a day. I'm never going to make any money because I'm always responding to these emails. I'm always responding to calls. And my response to that is not a billing issue. That is a client management issue, and that has to be handled from the beginning. So I'll tell you what it takes to become a client of mine, and I put people through this process on purpose. So you call, you get the answering service. You're never going to call, get me live. I can give you my number, everybody call. You're never going to get me on the phone. I don't care if Oprah Winfrey calls and wants me to do a prenup. She's going to get the answering service. They're going to send me a message, and my intake coordinator is going to call her back. So the process is the answering service takes a message. It's very detailed. It immediately goes into Dubsado, which is what I use for intake. Decorah Davis actually recommended that to me. It's amazing. And my intake person, I have a person solely dedicated for intake. She will review the notes, call them back, get some more information. I will scan in about 10 seconds the notes, and I'll say offer a consultation, or I will give some questions, and she knows what to look out for. If someone is very impatient, if someone, says, I want to, something done in the next 30 seconds, if they say, am I going to get Regina's cell phone number to contact her? She's really good at sussing out those clients from the beginning. I'm not even going to meet with those clients if I feel like they're going to be a problem later on. And I have to say about it works most of the time. 98% of the clients I have just don't bother me. I am currently on an unscheduled, unannounced vacation, and I'll show you later how I actually do announce my vacation to set clients' expectations. I have not, it's Friday, not one single client has called my office the entire week. Not one. So that's the number one question I get. So you have to start from the beginning that I'm not necessarily accessible by phone. Most people know that I do not have an office phone, and I don't want one. I have a client portal. I think clients sometimes call if they feel like they haven't been updated. Yes, sometimes they are a pain in the necks, but again, I try to weed those people out. I just tell people you have to communicate through the portal. And that way it's sort of a running log. Instead of having me to sort through 50,000 emails, it's just kind of almost like a Twitter feed. So I can see all of the notes from the client. I can respond when I want to, but giving them a space to sort of brain dump, which obviously people need a lot of times in family law, is helpful. And then that way I can skim through the notes and I can, use what I need, but I'm not getting inundated with emails. So when I get the question, what do you do with these calls? What do you do with the emails? I just tell them from the beginning, that's just not how we work. I'm not able to service you if I'm constantly putting out fires. There's going to be a time when your case is hot, where I'm preparing for your trial, and you're not going to want me interrupting your trial prep to answer phone calls and emails from other clients. So this is how we practice. These are our rules. It's in the fee agreement. I explain it to them because no one reads the fee agreement anyway. And that really helps to set expectations from the beginning, so clients know that phone calls really just aren't an option. And it's really not needed. They don't feel like they need to have a phone call to know what's going on with their case.
Yes, you do not have to answer every email in an hour or that day, or take every call that you're invited to. Can we have, if you start accepting, can we have a call? You're being on the phone all day, and nothing's come of it, right? Like you've retained no new clients, no new nothing, and you're just over here answering emails and fielding questions, like Regina said. So again,
there's a really good article. I'm going to try to find it and drop it in the notes. I think this is it. It's called Yesterbox. I found it. So this person, and I'll see his name in a second, Tony Hesh, is the CEO at Zappos. So his concept is don't respond to any email the same day. And I would say 98% of cases, you can do it. And if you think about it, think about how many times that a client emails you, you immediately fire off a response. There's 3-4 more responses. And then eventually you get, oh, I figured it out, or, oh, it's no longer a problem. And you just wasted all of that time. So here's the article. His suggestion is yesterday's email should be your inbox, because most of those issues are going to be resolved, and you don't necessarily have to let other people decide what your priorities are. And again, this is about expectations. So you tell your clients in the beginning what the time frame is for your responses to emails. So they're not expecting a response in 5 minutes, because if you respond right away, they're going to keep responding. Donna asked if you can share your contact policies. The answer is yes, I have. So if you join the group, lawyer on a beach. I posted that, I want to say last week, my entire communication policy that is in my fee agreement, which I have admittedly cribbed from several other people's fee agreements. So it's posted in the group.
So can this really work for me? First and foremost, yes, it could, but you won't know and you can't complain if you've never given it a shot, right? And so I'm not going to put anybody on the spot or take a poll here, but Regina and I have had a lot of conversations with people on this, and by and large, it seems to be like someone hasn't even given it a shot. Like you haven't even implemented it or tried it with one client, one matter to see what would happen, right? And the takeaway here is that it's not an all or nothing concept. You don't have to implement flat fees with every client you have right now or that you're going to retain in the next week, or every practice area, you know, assuming you offer multiple. You don't have to do a grand overhaul of your practice. We're not trying to create work for you. By now, if you haven't figured out that we're trying to do less work and not more, right? Like that's not the goal here, right? But on the alternative, you can try it for a month or two for a period of time, or on just certain types of matters starting Monday that you get retained for, or play around with it and use some of the options that we've put down here, right? Like there's a way to play around with it and experiment without having to commit to it entirely if you're a little bit apprehensive about it. So we've laid out some options below. In the interest of time, we're not going to keep going through every bullet and reading them all to you. You are going to get the slides. We keep repeatedly being asked about it. We've probably said that like 6 times. You are definitely going to get the slides and the replay. All of it you get, right? But we're going to kind of leave you guys to explore some of these finer bullets on your own in terms of options that you can use to actually put them together.
And I did flirt with flat fees before wholly committing to it. And how I did that was I knew I was going to do a big launch on January 1st. Hey, I'm now a big flat fee firm. This would have been back in, oh goodness, I think 2008, something like that, 2008. So what I did is I looked at all the cases that I had. I looked at where they were and how much I had left to do, and I just flat feed them all. And let me tell you, my clients were absolutely ecstatic. So every single one of them, I went to them and said, look, I can continue to bill you hourly, or I've looked at your case, I've looked at what we have left to do, I'll charge you X amount to finish the case, and if you pay it now, you won't owe anything else. And every single one of them agreed, every single one paid. It was really a nice infusion of cash at the time that I sort of do this launch. And they absolutely loved it. So if you're thinking of doing it, that's the easiest way to toy with it. If you've got a really highly litigated case and you're near the end, or you're on the trial calendar and you know what needs to be done, try just flat feeing the trial prep. So what I do is I just call it a trial prep fee, because you're not getting your money back if you settle on the courthouse steps 3 seconds before we go into court. So I essentially say the trial is free, but what you're paying me for is all the time and effort going into prepping for it. So just consider doing that. If you got some cases, they're about to end, flat fee the end of the case. And that way, when you're done, you're not sending the client a bill. You're just sending, glad I could help you. Here's my review link, write me a nice review, and then you're done. I think it's a little better of a client experience than even if you do win the case. We all know that their level of gratitude lasts for about 12 seconds, and then they get a bill and they're not so happy about you anymore. So just kind of try it that way, is to look at your existing cases and try flat feeing the remaining of it and see how it works for you. So.
All right, moving on to module 2. So how to go paperless, because that is the first foremost step and foundation of being able to be virtual, being able to have flexibility, autonomy as you move around, travel more, go places, or just, like I said, have more time for yourself out of the office for whatever reason, even if it's family, for yourself, kids, partner, friends. And the basis of that is being paperless. So I will go first on this one, just because and I tend to sound like a broken record when it comes to trademarks, but like it is just naturally paperless for the most part. Like everything is done electronically through the USPTO. I'll tell you this much, I don't even own a printer. Clearly that tells you my need for paper, right? We just don't produce any, and it's intentional. And that's just the nature of the practice, right? That's why I like it so much, and I teach it to my students. It's a dream area from a lot of aspects. And so everything's electronic. We do it through the USPTO. Dropbox is our best friend. We'll talk a lot about apps and software in a little bit here, but everything gets saved, PDF'd, and moved on. To the extent that mail does come in, like, I'll tell you, even in our office mail or in my personal mail, like I apply this principle to my personal life as well. If stuff comes in, it gets scanned, it gets uploaded, saved to the appropriate folder with a very specific file name in a format that we've already preset, right? So it's searchable and locatable and subfoldered and everything. There's a system behind that. And it gets shredded. I don't want to see it. I don't need it in case there's an apocalypse. Like, I will pay extra monthly for like the nicer version of Dropbox and the extra GB and all that stuff to not have to deal with that, right? So again, yes, practice area does play into it, but even with things that come in from the trademark office, notices that they mail, there's always an electronic version. Statements from my vendors, bank stuff, financial stuff, anything that comes in, like, get scanned, get saved. It's a no exceptions policy, because that is what allows me to, be in Mykonos, be in Europe, and be running my practice, and not be like, oh, I have to fly back to Atlanta. God, oh my God, to see that thing, right? Like, I want someone in Atlanta to send it to the right, upload it to the right person on my team, who then is instructed to do this and this. Software does X, Y, and Z, and now I can take a look at it if need even be, right? So we want it to all kind of flow together naturally. But that being said, when you litigate, you produce a lot of paper, right? And we are aware that there are certain jurisdictions where e-filing and so on is not an option. So Regina can share with you more, if you're on the litigation side, what that might mean for you.
Right. So in Georgia, we just got a law where everything filed in Superior Court, which is where I practice for family law, has to be e-filed, which is fantastic, but that was very recent. So up until then, the county where I did the most work, which is Gwinnett County, everything still had to be hand filed. So when we're talking about paper, obviously with litigation, you're never going to be complete paperless. I don't know about never. I dream of a day where no one has to have paper and exhibits can be submitted electronically. We're not there yet. I try to push judges in that direction, and then they don't want to look at my tablet and look at the exhibits. They want paper. So we're never going to get to no paper, I don't think. But you certainly can find ways to reduce paper. I can't tell you how many times I go to court for a divorce case I've been working on for 2 years, and the other side has their 2 assistants or interns dragging in boxes and boxes and boxes of paper, and they sit there stacked up. No one opens them the entire trial, but they sit there. And I come in with my 4 little binders. I've got a binder for me, I've got a binder for opposing counsel, I've got a binder for the judge, and I usually have a binder for the client to thumb through. That's it. That's all I have. That's all I've created for the entire case. So there's a way to create less paper. For example, do you really need to have the leave of absence of your opposing counsel from 1.5 years printed and in the courtroom with you? You don't. So there are ways to reduce paper. So just think of what you actually have to have, and then just don't print anything else. So that's kind of the easiest way to get to it. So if opposing counsel sends you paper and you don't need the originals, sometimes I scan and dispose. If it's something that I think I'm going to use at trial, obviously I'll keep it, because that will save me from having to print it again. But at the end of the case, and this is just so important, you don't have to keep the file. So I'm sure that everyone has bar rules that says you're supposed to keep files for a different number of years. I don't know of any bar rules that specifically says you have to keep it in a certain format. And that's not paper for me. So I create these very cute little binders, and I actually give them to the client at the mediation if we settle the case, or at the final trial. It's theirs. So everything I have, I give back to them, so that way I'm not accumulating a whole bunch of paper in the office. And it's actually quite a nice marketing tool, because my name's all over it, my logo's on it. They have a really nice organized file. It's sort of a visual representation, honestly, of how badass I am. That, hey, look up, this is all the work I've done on the case. It's just organized and laid out. Honestly, it makes a really good visual presentation when I show up for trial, and I have my 4 binders and everybody's names on it. It looks really nice as well. So another point is, like Sonia mentioned, get a universal naming system. It's very, very easy to find documents this way. If opposing counsel sends you an electronic document, you don't have to keep the same file name. Immediately rename it to what makes sense for your system. So I can find files I've gotten emails from clients saying, hey, I'm at a closing, I need my divorce decree from 2008. I could send it to them in 3 minutes flat. Because of my file system, it's been the same forever. It just really helps you to have your practice run from anywhere, if you're not constantly relying on paper. What? Okay, so we talked about giving them the file. Again, you're not a storage facility. Make your fee agreements electronic. That is a great way to go paperless. So as most of you know, I travel a lot. I'm in Arizona for this week. I think I was here for 2.5 weeks last month and no one really knew. On vacation last time when I was gone for 2 weeks, I signed up 3 clients without meeting them. My intake coordinator did most of the work and screened them for me. I approved it, and we send fee agreements either using HelloSign or a Dubsado, and they're signed on and they're good to go. From there, my paralegal drafts everything. They sign verifications electronically. I think Virginia and Texas might be the only states that allow for electronic notary. So if you want to get real fancy, they can actually do Skype notarizations. Otherwise, they usually just print the documents out, get them notarized on their end, and scan them back to me. So all this is explained to clients at the beginning of how, when we run how we run our practice, and that they're going to have some participation in getting stuff to us electronically. A really good hint for litigation is pre-number your exhibits and send them to opposing counsel ahead of time. So sometimes I actually will not print copies for the opposing counsel. Honestly, it really depends on how much I like them. If I like you, just so you know, if I like you, you'll probably get a printed copy of your exhibits. If I don't, you're not. But I will pre-number them and I will send them to the opposing counsel ahead of time. This sometimes is actually not even required with a pretrial order, but I do that to save paper, obviously, and it kind of helps you organize the file. So when I'm prepping for trial, it really is a very easy process for me, because as I'm going along, I'm keeping a folder of things. Sometimes your client will send you an email, you know that's going to be exhibit because it's awesome. So you immediately put it in your trial folder and put it in your exhibits folder. And then when it's time to go to trial, all you're doing is numbering them, putting them in order, and then dropping them in drop boxes into the other side. So another good thing that you should do is have your clients approve them ahead of time. So I know sometimes people have trial prep meetings. Sometimes clients don't even ask for them because I've sent them the exhibits ahead of time. They reviewed everything. They reviewed the proposed orders. And really the only thing that we need to talk about is their demeanor in the courtroom and how to address the judge and all of that, because the exhibit side of it, they've already approved and gone through. So that's another way that, being paperless can sort of help you in your practice, because your clients just have a view of everything that's going on. So this is my link to upload files to me. It's super easy. If you're using Dropbox, Box, whatever system that you're using, all of them have a link that you can either embed on your website or send to your clients. I've also put it in my emails and then my audit emails from Dubsado for potential clients. Everything gets uploaded to the same location so everybody can see it. I don't have anyone who works for me in-house. So my paralegal lives in Athens, so that means anytime anything is uploaded to the folder, she and I can see it simultaneously, and that goes from, wherever something is being scanned in from. So if you don't have a system like that, definitely get one. It's the easiest way to have clients deliver documents to you. It's traceable, it's trackable. So definitely that's something you should get right away.
Switching gears back to the business transactional stuff. So the paperlessness starts from the inception, like Regina said, right? Fee agreements from the moment someone gets started, we need those agreements to be electronic. Like, there just really does not need to be a reason in this day and age that the getting started with you portion needs to involve a printer for anybody, for you or for them, right? So they need to be able to sign electronically so that the engagement letter gets signed, or saved as a PDF and to their appropriately labeled subfolder and, on your system, your cloud system or whatever. They need to pay via an online link, right? We are not processing checks. No one's trying to go to the bank. No one wants to deal with bounced this and that, whatever. It's all administrative, clearing that, whatever. Like, get yourself LawPay, get yourself one of those systems and move on, right? Like, I've heard so much about like, well, it's this much a month and it's whatever. It's like $15 a month. So, come on. Like, for the
it's not a lot of money.
Yeah, like, come on, like
it's 1,000% worth it to have your electronic fee agreements. And for those that have older clients, I promise you they can figure it out. If they are having trouble, because I do have clients in their 70s, they've been able to figure it out. Krista, who's my paralegal, will walk them through it. I think with Dubsado, they don't even need to physically sign. They essentially just type in their initials and hit enter. I mean, anybody can do that. So just remove any roadblocks that you have to electronic signatures. They're valid everywhere. That it comes with an attachment page. HelloSign does it, at least. Comes with an attachment page showing the IP address of when the client logged on. They're 100% legit. Just definitely start trying to use electronic signatures.
Yeah, it's like the electronic signature is like 10, 15 bucks a month. Law pays like 10 or 15 bucks a month. I agree with you guys that I don't love how much of a percentage they take. Hey, babies, it's the cost of doing business. Like, we don't have time to worry about the chunk that comes out. We need to move on. And the time you spend trying to figure that out and agonizing over it, you could have retained 3 new clients, put them into your system flow, and be, churning on that. So there are certain things you're just going to have to pay for. I hope that you can trust us to guide you on the stuff that's worth it versus what you can just get rid of and you don't need. And we'll talk about that later on today as well. So document signatures, we need to be retained electronically. We need to be paid electronically. We need to collect the information. We need to do intake electronically. So I came across years ago a software, it's a startup that was made for trademark lawyers that does intake, right? So they get a link, they log on, they fill in their information. My assistant gets a notification when it's done and it's completed. She saves it, whatever. So I have found that for my specific area, right? However, there is just no need or excuse for you to be sending people a Word document or PDF that they print out and fill out and sign, and then they've got to scan it and send it back. Like I have been the recipient of so many service providers and vendors, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, you don't have a system in place for me to go on and type in the information you need from me to get started. And again, these are the little blocks standing in your way of that flexibility and that autonomy and mobility of being able to go wherever and be wherever, whether it's even if it's out of the office and at home or in another country or at a spa or whatever. Like, these things need to be taking place at minimum without your involvement so that you can stay and reserve your juices, right, for the stuff that you actually need to be doing, which is, the heavy lifting of the legal work, right? So this stuff is very important, and it's just unnecessary, right? For nominal fees a month, it's completely unnecessary. So again, in the interest of time, we're going to let you guys review these. These are some helpful resources that we've compiled. I live and swear by Dropbox. It is the housing system we use. I pay extra for like the biggest premium version for all the users. Like Regina, I don't have anyone in-house because I'm not even in-house, right? Like, what does in-house mean to someone who lives in Manhattan, whose practice is based in Atlanta, Georgia, right? So my whole team is remote. I have one in New York who doesn't live anywhere near me, one in Virginia, one in California, and 2 in Atlanta. And everybody coordinates. They have their different roles. We have rules on things down to the file name. Like, a little bit of planning along, really does the trick for the long haul. And the number one sort of thing I try to keep in mind, rule of thumb, when it comes to systems and templates and stuff like that, is if you're doing it more than once in your business, it needs a procedure. So obviously, saving files, as crazy as that might sound, needs a procedure. Like, even if it's a 2-step procedure, fine. You save the PDF to a folder, and we call it title, document, date, form, month, period, date, period, 1/9, right? Like, that's my preferred. I like dots to separate, but it can be dashes, but you don't want a September 18th fully written out and then a 1-2-. It's like, it needs to be searchable. So again, we wish this could be comprehensive, and there's, really, in the interest of time, like, the nuggets we're having to do along the way and just give you guys, conceptual ideas and tastings along the way. But, there's so much we can say on any one of these slides for more and for hours, so we're going to let you guys peruse these resources. Like I said, you'll get the slides and they're clickable. Moving on to module 3. We're keeping our expenses low, okay? Like I said, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it matters how much you spend. And the key here is to just think about what requires money from you, what the must-haves are and what the must-haves are not. And too many people get this mixed up. So if it's going to save you money and it's something you do repeatedly that you can tell someone how to do, you don't need to be doing it anymore. So the hierarchy goes, in my world, the hierarchy goes as follows. Does this need to be done? Okay. If it needs to be done, do I need to be the one doing it? Okay, so what are we, in those 2 steps, what have we done? We're deleting things that don't need to be done, period. So nobody's doing them. I don't want anybody at Lakhani Law expending energy, right? Okay, step 2, it needs to be done. Does Sonia need to do it? Okay, no, then who would be the appropriate team member, or, this is the important part, app, or is there a service or a software that can do this function? Because I get a lot of stuff about, like, yeah, someone needs to mute. I'm going to go back and mute everybody. And I'll manually unmute Regina, because There we go. Okay. So does that help get rid of it? I don't know. But anyway, all right. Let's see. No, it's, yeah, okay, hold on.
No.
Hold on.
I don't think it's my air conditioning, but I'll turn it off just in case.
Yeah, all right. Well, okay, yeah, maybe it might, maybe it was your air conditioning. I don't know. Let me turn you back on. Well, no, it seems to be fine. Maybe that's what it was.
Oh no, it's 105 degrees. So if I pass out, someone call 911.
No. All right. Well, listen, I mean, we had we budgeted an hour and we're already over that. And we're, you know, fine by me, but you know, we're going to move along a little faster here because A, it's a Friday. We've got lives too. And B, we don't want Regina to die of heat exhaustion. So, all right. So like I said, the hierarchy here is, if it needs to be done, is there a software or an app that can do it as opposed to a team member? And that's the kind of stuff, first and foremost, you want to spend money on. Versus, Regina, I will let you go through some of this stuff.
Yeah, and before I get to that, I'll just give you a quick example. So over the weekend, a former client of mine from, I think it was about 7-8 years ago, his ex, he's got custody of his kid, his ex sued him for contempt for not allowing parenting time, and he wanted to file a contempt against her for child support. So the hearing was set for Tuesday, and because he remembered my rules about not working on the weekend, and I credit him for this, he didn't even call me until Monday. So we got served on Saturday, called me on Monday. There was a hearing on Tuesday the next day. I usually don't take cases last minute. It was a former client. I made an exception. Normally, with a paper system, that would be a moment of panic. It wasn't. I forwarded the email to my to two people, to my paralegal and to my intake coordinator. My intake coordinator called, got all of the details of what was going on so I could skim the notes in about 2 seconds. Then I did one task to my paralegal of what needed to be done. She did it in probably 20 minutes. And we're talking about entry of appearance, an answer, a new case filing for contempt against her, a motion for continuance, a motion for drug testing. All of those things are templated in LawYaw, and she did it in about 20 minutes. And I reviewed it in about 5 minutes, and it was filed by 9:30 a.m. Monday morning. So that's just kind of a quick example of how systems can really help you move things along. So in terms of expenses, I have been all over the world with this. I used to have a much larger firm. I would invent ways to blow money. I have shrunk my expenses to really kind of maximize my profit. So this is just kind of my list of what I think you need versus what you don't. I'll let you go through that. I think an answering service is invaluable. Originally, when I had a larger firm, I could not keep a receptionist. For some reason, it wasn't a position that I was able to successfully kind of fill. So when I started downsizing, I started using an answering service, and to me, it's so much better. I pay $700 a month. The majority of the clients that I get are potential clients. So obviously it's important for someone to answer the phone, but it's not necessarily important for someone in-house to do it. So I think that's super important. I also think that dressing well, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to wear very, very expensive clothes or a lot of them. I have a very small wardrobe. You'd be shocked at the number of clothes that I have. But they do look professional. I'm not wearing, because clients do kind of pay attention to those things. So, you know, my shoes are always well taken care of. My clothes are all well taken care of because perception is reality. And that's just one of the things that I've kind of cultivated in my image, is that I'm put together all the way around in terms of how I deliver my legal services, how I show up for court. I'm always 15 minutes early. I'm never going to be late. If I'm late, you need to call 911 because I'm dead. Those kind of things all kind of go into it. But so I think you need high quality clothes and shoes. You have to have a really good headshot for your website, I think, answering service, and some of the systems that we talked about earlier, electronic signature. To me, those are must haves. The next slide is stuff that people have that I do not think that you need. So can you go to the next one?
Okay. What is that weird transition? I swear
I kind of went overboard with the transitions, but anyway.
I don't know how that snuck itself in there overnight. Do not know how that happened.
So here are the things that I think that you need to consider getting rid of. So if you don't have to fax, then don't do it. And yes, I know there's some jurisdictions like New Jersey where you have to fax some things in. Obviously, I'm not talking to you. But there are some jurisdictions like Georgia. I know that you guys do not have to use faxes, so just don't. Phone system. You don't really need a phone system. Just get the answering service. I am a huge advocate for not taking unscheduled calls. So you get an answering service, they email you if it's important, you can call right back right away. But a phone a phone system, not having one, it's going to save you a ton of money. Don't need a receptionist. Consider not having traditional office space. I've done the virtual thing. I now have partners, so we share in all the expenses. So I do have traditional office space, but I don't really need to have it. Paper files, consider whether or not you need to print and,
Sorry.
paper files. That's okay.
I hit something and now these transitions won't stop. Okay, there we go.
That is a really long transition. Avo, I think, is garbage. So I wouldn't recommend paying for that. I don't know that you need Google AdWords either. There's other things that you can do in terms of marketing that'll save you money. You don't need law library or law books. Clients don't care if you have this nice fancy library. These are things that if you have enough money, then maybe you can get them down the line, but they just are not essential. And I prefer to run sort of a skinny, lean practice. So these are things that I don't have. I don't pay for legal research. I haven't in over 12 years. I use Fastcase, which is free from the bar. I don't have an accountant, never have. I use mint.com, tracks everything electronically. I save money there. I haven't had an IT person ever. That is because I do tend to be kind of technologically inclined, so I can set up servers and all that. But now nobody needs an IT person because you can just put everything in the cloud and you don't need servers. You don't need everybody to be connected on the same network. Everything just goes to the cloud. Postage, most things don't need to be mailed. You don't need couriers. You can e-file. SEO also, I think, is a waste of money. So
the list goes on. We could, like I said, each one of these modules, we could do a 3 to 6 hour class on just that. So we could schedule another time and just talk about really drilling down on the things you need, don't need, deleting, downsizing and all. But in the interest of time, we need to move on. So this is an example from Regina on the stuff that she's doesn't have costs associated. Regina, are you okay if I let folks walk themselves through this? Because
yes,
really.
Yeah, so that's just a general list and kind of priorities of things that you kind of need to get rid of. And I got that from Danny Dover, who wrote The Minimalist Makeover. So if you can check out that book, that's a good resource as well.
Yeah, because the thing is, I want to distribute the time we have left, among the rest of the modules, so that we're not like, plowing through profit first. Because I know a lot of you guys are excited. I am, but I know a lot of us are excited about that one, and we don't want to rush the rest of this. So just so that we budget out the rest of our time we have left. So module 4, all money is not good money. Just because it's green does not mean you need to have it. This is a huge thing for people. Like, this is a huge mindset block and a huge point of concern for people. I get notes and posts and stuff like this all the time, right? Like, you have to become okay with turning down clients and money. Like, you just have to be. And I'm going to talk about how and why. First of all, you need to get crystal dang clear on what it is that you do and who you do it for. You may have heard these terms bounced around, like creating your ideal client avatar and, like your ideal client profile and stuff like this. Like, a lot of people think this is like really rah and hoo and like she, but like, this is the step 1 that's going to make you clear on what it is you want to bring through the door and who you want to do your legal work for, who you want to provide services to, right? And we'll talk on the next slide about taking that a more concrete approach and how to do that. But if you don't identify the common traits and denominators among the sorts of clients you want to have, and I apologize, I just saw a typo, so we'll get that fixed before you go live. You're going to be stuck practicing what I fondly call door law, which is whatever walks through the door. And it is appalling the number of forums, including Boss Ladies, Ms. Esquire, Lady Boss lawyers, that I see people who are like, when people are talking about like what they do, they're like, oh, I practice door law, so whatever you've got. Like, that is shameful. That is shameful that you're willing to like publicly say that and be okay with it, right? Because you're going to get whatever comes through. And if you're happy with it, then you're always going to be stuck at a certain point. A point that does not include a lot of happiness with your clients, because it's everybody. It's just the whole mixed bag, right? And nobody's okay with any type of client, right? I get why people do it, because you feel like you need the money. There's a scarcity mentality behind feeling like, okay, this person's willing to pay me. If I take their money, then that's $1,000 I didn't have before, even though, it's review of a real estate lease and that's 3 hours I could bill for that. Or if you're doing flat fee, then, $1,000, whatever. But you haven't ever seen a real estate agreement in your whole life. Like, you're spending time and energy trying to learn a new practice area and not having been prepared for it. Or worse yet, this person is a pain in the ass from the beginning. They are asking you all kinds of questions. They got a bad attitude. They call you crying and freaking out already if you're on the individual family or prim side. And you're already getting this like gut feeling, and your experience and wisdom is telling you this is a bad idea, but you're like, man, if I take this 5 Gs I didn't have 20 minutes ago, like, you can't think like a hustler, like when it comes to this specific point. You want to think like a hustler and a grinder, like when it comes to building your practice out, but not like, oh, I got to hustle and just take everything. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to be comfortable with turning down money if people seem difficult, pesky, etc. from the beginning. I understand, and I have also been there. I'm there right now, as a matter of fact. I got an email this morning from one of these where, you know what, you didn't call it correctly. They seemed fine in the beginning. It's kind of like when you first dating someone, and everything's all amazing in the beginning, and then, whoa, all the crazy comes out 6 months later, 3 months later. You can't always call it, right? So where you can save yourself is if and when there is repeat work requested, your rates go way up. So it's like a prohibitive way of just pricing yourself out of that engagement, right? So I'm not gonna lie, I did that to somebody this morning. Like, he was perfectly normal, and it was just like, oh wow, like, you're a business owner, and I did several of his trademarks, and like, just along the way, for details I don't have time or confidential bandwidth to go into, it just became a giant pain in the ass. And I'm like, you know what? I never want to do another trademark for you again. Like, I just don't want to do this. And so he came back for another one, yet another one. We're at like over half a dozen now. And I was like, actually, our prices have changed. And I just threw out something astronomical because I knew it would be prohibitive. And he was like, wow, your rates went high up. Like, what about, come on, like, and I'm like, sorry, it's toward the end of the year. It's, we're hitting on Q4, and, this is blah, blah, blah. So you have to be, and he would have paid me, again, easily what I had been charging. And that definitely is money I wouldn't have had 20 minutes ago. But at what cost? Quality of life, happiness, and being able to structure things. Because if I'm in Bali, I don't want you repeatedly emailing me on the hour about something. That's the kind of guy he is.
Right, and it's so important.
My Bali-ness, which means we're not about it, right?
Yeah, sorry. And it's so important and it ties into flat fees, because a lot of people get sucked into what I call the 80-20 trap. And I talk about it on my Facebook page as well. You spend, 80% of your time on 20% of your clients. And that is not how it's supposed to be. It should be the other way around, because everyone has those problem clients, and you're constantly putting out fires with them. You're constantly dealing with them. Whereas your good clients, the ones that don't email you 50 times a day, that don't, try to call you at Sunday at 2 p.m. because somebody was late for a baseball game with a glove, you can't focus on them because you're constantly dealing with the shit client that you don't even really want. So that's why I have become crystal clear on what it is that I want. I don't take cases. Like, if someone says the word defects, my answering service knows to just decline them, because those cases are soul suckers for me, and they're time suckers. And I can't deliver my legal services to the other 80% of my clients if I've got that 20%. So I definitely turn down a lot of those, what I call fringe cases, because I know I'm going to spend a bunch of time on them, and I want to spend time on, the good clients that aren't calling me every 5 minutes. So that's why identifying your ideal client is so important when you're doing flat fees, in order to maximize the amount of money that you make. So you're not sort of, dealing with fires and these problems that the problem clients can create.
Did I spell that right?
Oh, someone asked what DFACS is. Sorry. It's Department of Family and Children's Services. So CPS in some states. So anytime someone's children have been taken by DFACS, or someone, there's a referral out, there's an open investigation, I just decline the case. I just don't have the mental bandwidth to do it. I don't have time. I don't have the resources. That's just not in my wheelhouse. Yes, so CPS is what it's called in other states. So, and you actually might want to do those kind of cases, and that's fine, but you need to know what you want to do and what you're capable of. And then it's really going to help you with flat fees to identify what your client is and to build a fee structure that benefits what you want to do.
For the love of God, I can't with this weird transition. I am appalled. I think it's a Zoom software thing, because I can guarantee you nobody on my team, as during the preparation of the slides, would have
I
the
definitely did it.
audacity to do that. Like, I feel like it's a Zoom thing, but I'm going to test it when we get out. I cannot believe it. Anyway. All right. So part 2 on this. So this is not a marketing seminar. I wish it was, because that's my first love. If Regina is a systems queen, marketing and branding is my jam. Like, I love designing a branding strategy and figuring out ideal client and mapping and all of this and stuff. And I too have become so clear on the types of clients I want, that I work with, that I'm accepting, right? Because it is an accepting that you don't have to work with everyone who calls. But alas, we don't have time. So again, this is just a quick nugget here. So tips on how to identify your ideal client, just so you have something to take away. First and foremost, easy peasy. Take an inventory of your past and current clients. You know who you like working with, and maybe you don't know why, but take a minute to think about why, right? If you have to go through, I've had my students do this. I teach marketing and branding to attorneys. And toward the end, I'll talk about, the types of courses I offer, but this is not intended to be like a plug for anything. It's just informationally, if you're interested in some more help with that kind of stuff. But my students do this. I make them go through and take an audit of like their last however many clients. Who did you like? Put a check mark next to them. Why did you like them? Oh, they were friendly. They were, they paid easily, whatever. Like, there's certain reasons, right? And similarly, who are you just like, oh my God, I hated that person, right? Why? And as you start to look through and really start to, make columns of like, this is why and reasons, and organize it, you can visually see, where things fall out. And that's how you can start to get an idea of the things that you want to see in your clients. And the bonus here is that as you get clear on this, then it makes the rest of your marketing so much easier, because you speak in a language that attracts your ideal client and repels the types of people you don't want to work with, right? So for example, in a lot of my marketing, on both sides, when I market my courses and classes, as well as my law practice, I talk a lot about the premium relationship I have, the hands-on service, the boutique aspect of things, right? A good thorough, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for in English? A good tip off to what you don't want is when someone's like, I'm looking for a reasonably priced attorney who, whatever, or affordable or whatever. Like, I hate those words. I'm like, please don't tag me in that post. Like, I don't want it. I don't want that person who's already decided that they have a number, and if I don't meet it, because it's just a waste of everybody's time, right? And it is true that if you are looking at your client base right now and you're like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of a lot of them, or the people that seem to call seem to be a lot like this, or the kinds of people I don't like. The secret is in your marketing message, right? The language and types of marketing and the way you're marketing is attracting those types of people. So as you get clear, you can start to spin it around and attract more of the better stuff. So here's some ideas below for factors or traits that they may have in common. I'll run through them very quickly because we want to move on to number 5. But age plays into it. If business and industry for the clients on my side of things. Gender, I know a lot of family attorneys that like only work with women or only work with the husbands, or that kind of stuff. It could be sophistication level with technology. That's a big one for me. If people are very resistant, it doesn't happen a lot in my side of the line, but it can. Educational background, pricing mentality is huge for just about everybody. And the list goes on, but it's just some ideas for you. So
profit first.
Transitioning. So just a quick word on this. Like I said, if you're not familiar with this, Profit First is a very, very famous book that boss ladies have been talking about in our group a lot. Lawyers in general use it, like-minded. Those of us who are here that think this way, that are trying to run more efficient practices. Increasingly, there's been a following, except that, we wish we had all the time in the world to watch the courses and read the books and whatever. And I'm a person of efficiency. And I was like, Regina knows about it. Let's throw in a few slides so she can just like recap it for everybody. If you want to read it, obviously you'll get a taste of it now and decide if it's worth the order and the read. If not, maybe this will be enough to get you started. I will say before Regina starts, so there's the link on Amazon. I think it's like under $20 if I had to recall. It's sitting on my nightstand half read, which is why I'm also excited to have Regina talk about this stuff. But I will say that we are sending out a survey, by the way, at the end of this, just to see what you thought, to understand better how we can continue serving you. If you do want extended encore of some of these concepts, like which of those would it be, stuff like that, just to help us. And I will say that I will send a copy of Profit First to the first 5 people who's complete the survey. You'll get it in the email with the replay. So if you're interested and you like the next few slides, just as a thank you for attending and an incentive to give us some feedback on how we did, first 5 people will get a copy of Profit First on me, and I'll ask you for your address. So that's a little perk to pay more extra attention as well. So Regina, enliven us, get us together.
So Profit First really is a quick read, so I definitely recommend reading it. I mean, if you can sit down and barrel through it in about 2 hours just to kind of get a high-level overview, which I think he recommends that you do, and then you just kind of digest it chapter by chapter. So this first chart really is the meat of what he is preaching about. So he encourages you to figure out what your real revenue is. I can't even begin to explain to you the complicated formula that is the real revenue because he does it, so it's in the book. But this chart, once you figure out what your real revenue is, this is essentially an envelope system. So I originally started using category C of my percentages, and then I shifted them, and you'll see them on the next slide for my particular needs. But he does encourage you to sit down and look at your numbers if you haven't already done so and figure out what your real revenue is. And then once you do, you figure out which category that you're in, and then these are the percentages. He encourages you to open up, goodness, I think it's 6 different accounts, 6 or 5 different accounts, where your income goes into one account and then you distribute the money out. I have modified it slightly where all of my income goes into the operating account, which is the bottom account, and then I distribute out to the 3 other accounts, to the taxes, to the owner's pay, and to the profit account. And as I said, I adjusted the I adjusted the percentages. Sonia, can you go to the next one?
I can't.
I like it.
I'm shook.
Okay, so I actually took this summary from this guy, which is why I credited him for it, because I didn't feel like the need to reinvent the wheel. So these are some of the biggest takeaways from Profit First. So obviously it's like the title, take your profit first. So as soon as you get your income, you immediately use the envelope system and you shove your money in these different accounts. And it's really great for flat fees because it's very easy to do. You just pick the day of the month. I usually do it on the 15th and the last day of the month, and then just shove the money over. And there's a couple of reasons why he suggests doing that. That's kind of what the beginning of the book is about. It's explaining that. I'll kind of not go through that, just kind of get into the actual meat of it. So once you figure out the size of your business, then it correlates to the percentages. So his big thing is profit is not an event. It's something that you're planning for consistently. So every single time that you get paid on the 15th and the 30th, you're doing this envelope system, you're allocating for your profit. And it goes into that profit account and it stays and it grows and grows and grows. I think he advocates taking it out quarterly or something and just kind of doing whatever you want with it, play money. Personally, I'm doing something different with that. I'm a little behind on my retirement savings because I made a lot of poor choices in my 20s and 30s. So the majority of my profit account is going to automatically fund my retirement account. But seeing, when you take the profit first and you see those numbers grow and you're essentially hiding money from yourself, it makes it a lot easier to save for retirement or save whatever it is that you need to, as opposed to just spending a whole bunch of money and saying, okay, what's left, and then trying to figure it out from there. Okay, the next one. Okay, so he drills into your head that profit is baked into your business every day, every transaction, every moment. So that means every single dollar that comes in, a percentage is going to be allocated to come out from your profit for your tax and for your owner spending. So take it first. So what I have highlighted in red is kind of controversial, but I don't think so. It's so much. So people always say, well, what happens if I don't have enough money for running my business left in my operating account? He pretty much says that's not my problem, or too bad, deal with it. That's his solution. He says that is a red flag to you to tell you that your expenses are too high.
Or you don't have enough clients. You need to market better and get more. You need more money coming through that door. If
exactly,
you cover it on your overhead, one or the other.
That's exactly what he says. Is that you're doing something wrong and you need to figure it out, because a lot of times people won't figure it out unless they're forced to figure it out. So if you're using the envelope system and you're allocating your money out and you've got $500 left in your account, the solution is not to transfer money back into the accounts. It's just to figure it out. So if it means that you have to hustle and get a new client because you've got rent due in 2 days and you've only got $3 in your operating account, then do it. So like I said, it's kind of controversial, but I don't think anybody in this group is, going to not be able to feed their children because of this. But I think it's a really good way for you to force you to take an honest look at your expenses and whether or not they're too high. So since I've started using the system, I have realized that I have systematically cut my expenses. So I really don't have an issue with not having enough money in my operating account. So it's forced me to sort of relook at my expenses and get rid of them to run a leaner practice. So he also says that when you place additional significance on it, it comes first. So when you're doing this envelope system, that's the focus. You're focusing on your profit, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow because that's where the focus is. Okay, next one. Yeah, I definitely put transitions on all these slides. So
that was you.
Final wrap up
the betrayal.
So eliminating unnecessary expenses. So the last chapter of his book actually talks about eliminating expenses, and that's, if you see in the other slide with the Danny Dover chart, that's a mechanism to figure out which expenses you don't actually need. So, and another big focus of his is base your business on what you can afford to do now. Like, this is not something that you need to project into the future. You don't need to lease 10 offices if you only have one employee because you think you're going to grow someday. So focus on what you're doing right now, run a lean system, focus on your profit. And then of course you can use your profit account later on to expand and grow if you need to. Next. So I've actually changed the percentages, as you can see. So I have allocated 30% to profit, which is more than he recommends no matter how much you make. But like I said, I'm a little bit behind on retirement savings, so I have upped that. I'm pretty much a minimalist, so I need way less for my personal spending than a lot of people do. So I've put that down to 10%, and I've kept his recommended 20% for taxes and then 40% for operating. So how this works is I generally have a pretty big surplus in my operating account because I have limited my expenses, so I'm really not using 40% for operating. So occasionally I will go through and I'll take extra money out of the operating and put it into the profit account. But I don't ever, other than that, I don't ever transfer between the three of these. So I would suggest using his tips for at least 6 months to figure out how it's working for you. And then if you want to adjust the percentages, you can. But don't adjust the percentages because you're spending a whole bunch of money and you're trying to justify it. That's not a good reason to do it. Next. So these are just some apps and tools that we have. So you can go through these, as you want. I have listed on my Lawyer on the Beach page, I have tested a lot of these tools and resources, but it's just a list of different things that you can try to help implement flat fees and software.
Yeah, we tried to pull sort of the popular ones. I mean, I started with the ones, or I included the ones that we definitely use, obviously, but it doesn't have to be, we're definitely not the experts. We're just sharing kind of like our 2 cents on each thing. I think one of the things that we definitely agree on is that we each have these and that we're both huge Smith.ai fans in terms of answering service. But other than that, there's not really like a science behind it. They're all different price points. They have different features, things like that. If you look at Smith.ai, I know they'll give you a 30-day trial. And because I love it so much, I asked them for a referral code. So if you use that, you'll get some, I think it's $50 off every month or something, I don't know, but it's better than nothing. So again, in the spirit of keeping our expenses low, where we can get discounts, I think we should take them. The point I want to make here on this slide as one of our kind of wrap up and takeaways is that it is very easy to get lost in like the confusion and choice overload of, well, which one? And like, well, I guess I can't choose one until I test them all and whatever. Like, unless you like really enjoy it, and that's fine if that's a Saturday hobby for you, Regina, that's okay, but I watch marketing stuff and study branding in my spare time. So it helps my business, her love for systems helps hers. So if you genuinely are into it, it's totally fine. However, I just really want to urge you guys to pick one or two, set aside an hour or so to look at them both and tell yourself, I'm just going to pick one. That's it. And move on. because you can always switch later if you hate it. You can migrate data if you need to, but like the time lost and the productivity and the bottlenecking that will occur in you just trying to scout one out and continue tasting one the next couple of weeks is not worth it, right? You're defeating the purpose of having the tool to begin with. So look at things that play together well. One thing I forgot to put on here is Zapier is amazing. It is a sort of like well, there's Zaps, right? So it has a whole platform of like all the different tools that are out there, starting with the Google Suite and Microsoft and some of these. And I didn't put email marketing, but if you really do need a way, that's a whole nother thing, but a way to keep in touch with people that you meet and clients and stuff. So whether you have MailChimp or ConvertKit or Constant Contact or whatever, but like all these software programs can play together. So Zapier will help you create Zaps so that, like, for example, once someone's, clicks submit on HelloSign, then they get entered into this database and then a spreadsheet populates or whatever. So that, again, this is all taking place as you board the flight and power down and go to Milan, right? Or as you're laying on a beach, and just reading a book for fun, shocker, right? Because these little things are done, whereas they would have required a team member or worse, you, to be manually saving and uploading all these things. So Zapier is fun to play with. They have recommended Zaps and they use a lot of these, but again, the point here is to not get too caught up in which one exactly, but to choose a couple, move on from there. So that being said, here are some recommended books as well that you can take a look at, including Profit First. And I'm a personal fan as well of the 4-Hour Workweek. It has really, really helped shape your thinking into condensing down your workload and just being more efficient and, with your time and spending it in a way that's productive. We'll leave you guys to take a look at some of the FAQs we put together, in case you want to peruse those, but we try to identify some of the ones that we had a feeling you might be thinking.
Yeah, can you go back? Actually go back one slide.
Yeah, sure.
Because everybody wants to know, like, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? And the answer is there's not one way to do it. I could spend 4 hours giving you different scenarios. So, and the reason why I kind of have the book list is there's different ways to do it, and the books will kind of give you some ideas. So I'll just give you a couple just to kind of, so you can just sort of wrap your brain around that. So I suggest reverse engineering everything. So if you look at how can you make more with flat fees versus hourly, this is just an example of how I run my practice. If I worked 8 hours a day, 5 hours a week at 50 weeks a year, and if I do bill hourly, I say my hourly rate is $400 an hour. That's the maximum that I can make. I don't want to work that much. I mean, that's only 2 weeks off a year. That's 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I can tell you, I have not worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, probably since I left my firm in 2005. That's just not the lifestyle that I want. So what I do work is about 4 hours a day, three days a week. So, and about 30 weeks a year. I take a lot of time off. So if I was billing hourly, I could only earn $144,000. That's not what I want to make. So the last 2 years, my income was somewhere in between 500 and 750, and I don't have associates to kind of boost that number. So I'll give you kind of a quick way of how you can do it. So you can charge per stage. That's what I've done for a while, and I've recently switched to a new format, and I'll explain that as well. So you can charge per stage. You charge, I don't know, $10,000 to begin a divorce case. I charge another maybe $2,500 for mediation prep and going to mediation. And then maybe $10,000 for trial prep and trial. That is probably the most popular form of flat fees, and that is one example of how it can work. What I've recently switched to is a fee schedule, because there are some times where an unexpected counterclaim comes up, so it really wasn't contemplated in the original schedule, and there's really nothing you can do except just suck it up and do the work. So what I do now is a fee schedule, and the initial payment, the $10,000, whatever, just applies to the fee schedule. And the fee schedule lists everything that could possibly happen: depositions, extra court hearings, motions to compel, just every single thing that could ever happen in your practice. The flat fee then gets applied to the schedule. So the question is, are all those fees listed in one agreement? And the answer is yes. With the new fee schedule, it's just attached, and it's about 4 pages long. So the actual fee agreement is about 2 pages long, and the fee schedule is attached. So someone asked, litigation requires court appearances. Do you file leaves for all of your days off? And the answer is most of them, yes. I do. For example, I have a leave coming up. I'm taking the entire month of October off. It's not going to be there. I file a leave. I usually take a month off in between December and January as well. So what I do is I schedule my court appearances obviously before I leave or when I come back. And that's fairly easy for me to do. So going back to how to structure the flat fees, like I said, the stage fee is very popular. Another popular thing which I don't like to do is one fee for the entire case. I don't recommend it unless it's a very, very short case, like a TPO, a restraining order, a contempt hearing that's really only going to be one court appearance. That's really the only time that I would recommend charging one fee for the entire case, especially since some states require flat fees not earned until the fee is earned, which means if you're charging one fee for the entire case, you can't even take the money until the case is over. So I don't recommend that. Another thing that you can do is subscription billing, which is per month. You just charge an amount per month, and that kind of puts your firm on a salary. So that's another popular thing. So when people ask in terms of how you can make money more flat fees versus hourly, one of the biggest is there's no double billing, and I kind of explain how that works. So if I'm in litigation, we've all been there. You get there, 5 cases are heard before you, and then you get heard. Well, what are you doing during those 5 hours? You're doing one of two things. You're either doing nothing, and your client is being billed for you to wait, which is perfectly legal and legit and fine, or you're working on other cases, which means you're billing those other cases and not billing the client that you're there for. So that's not what I do. Sonia, someone asked to show the next slide, so that's fine.
Yep.
So what I do is while I'm waiting, I work on my uncontested cases. So I've already been paid for the court appearance that I'm there for. And then, like I said, I have the systems in place where I can bang out 2-3 uncontested divorces in an hour. So I consider that money earned because I've finished those cases while I'm sitting there waiting for another case. So I can easily have a $20,000 or $25,000 day. And that's just not something that's mathematically possible with hourly billing. So this is the reverse engineering that I'm talking about, figuring out how much money you need to run your practice and to pay yourself, and then go backwards and then figure out how you're going to get there. So you can get there by charging in stages, but make sure when you're adding up your schedule of fees, that's going to add up to how much you're trying to make per month. That's the hardest to do. The easiest, obviously, is subscription billing. 60 clients, $1,000 a month, $60,000 if that's your target. So that's the first thing you need to do, is just trying to go backwards and figure out how much money do I want to make, and then figure out the best way to get there on flat fees. Is it subscription? Is it charging for the entire thing at once? If as long as you make that a big number, that might work for you. Is it charging per stage? Is it charging with a fee schedule? I don't know the specific answers for you, but those are 4 concrete options that you can have in flat fees that will help you earn more money, because you're also able to batch tasks, and I talk about that as well. So if I retain a whole bunch of people at once, my paralegals, spending a day just doing discovery from everybody and filing everything at once, filing all the leave of absences at once, everything sort of gets batched together. Whereas if we were getting paid hourly, it wouldn't really bring us that much money. So that's why we just kind of, do everything at once and get it done and out the door.
Yeah, I'll sort of co-sign on that. I think there's several aspects of time management that play into flat fees as well, and why they make more sense. But batching is something I'm a huge fan of, because from a psychological standpoint, when you sit down to do the same thing, you can do it faster and more efficiently, because you're just repeating that function over, 5 or 6 files or 10 files, and then you move on to the next task. So as a side note, always consider, how you can apply that to the work that you do already, even if you're not fully flat fee. But the point we were making in the beginning about having predictability in your revenue and deciding what you want to make, need to make, what the difference is between those two, the gap, right? There's just so much more predictability, because it adds up, and then the time and energy and effort spent on your end to think of it as like fulfilling those orders, right? Delivering on those services is not going to match, because you have built in a padding for the profit, but also that once you're doing the same thing for multiple people, right, that's where you can develop a system and have an app or a tool. And, we're at the last stage, have a human body doing it, right? But as you can see, we're big fans of technology and softwares and apps. And one of the things that I hear a lot about is that, well, yeah, of course, if you have a team of 5, nationwide, of course, no wonder you run, you know, a 6-7 figure business. Well, yeah, but the thing is that I didn't get there with all those people either. Like I was and still am very much about software and apps and things like that. And the humans come in to fill the gaps where, you know what, I just couldn't find technology to manually do that. Or, but you get as close as you can. I am also wanting to highlight here that it doesn't have to be a limitation in terms of what practice area that you're focusing on. Like if you decide that you want to do it for one practice area of the 3 that you have, just try it and kind of, you can see for yourself over the course of the rest of the year. Like I would say, like a mini challenge, if you want, is go from mid-September through the end of the year and just identify one practice area or one type of matter that you're going to start to experiment with this on. But, like I said, I do it for trademarks. You can do it for contracts and a lot of these transactional matters, and the zeros start to add up. I probably would say the average cost of a trademark matter from start to finish, which is the type of billing I do, excluding one particular aspect, and I'm very clear about that. But excluding one particular aspect, the trademark process is $2,500. If I have 25 to 30, average new matters a month, meaning not new clients necessarily, although a lot of those are, but a lot of them are repeat, right? People are coming back from more or another one, and every mark is different. A logo is different from a word versus a phrase or whatever. Well, 2,500 times 20, 25 or 30 new matters is a lot of zeros, right, monthly. And I'm not having to work around the clock to fulfill those services because we do, let's say we do all the searches in, one batch, right, like I said, and then we'll do a bunch of trademark filings and send those off. And then there's a designated day and time that my team meets and we go over office actions like bounce backs that came in and we resolve those, right? But like there are, it's like office hours. Like I know when I'm going to have to do those things, but the deadlines are 6 months apart. So it is different than, let's say family law or some types of litigation. But, if I have 6 months to respond to something and I'm looking at, the correspondence that comes in even twice a month, I'm still way ahead of these deadlines, right? And again, that's how you kind of build in having the funds for that up front to be able to implement things like profit first, but also just, achieving that thing that we always talk about, which is like, how do I work the same or less, but keep making more, right? Like we're trying to show you different examples of how that can pan out for you. So I know Regina wants to answer this question. I do have a hard stop at like 5 to 6. So like in a couple minutes, I do have to pop off and get somewhere. And also it's Friday night. So, we'll tap on this, but if you guys have questions, please keep them coming in because we're recording the webinar, and if we have to do an encore, we will. But we're certainly sending you a survey too to get an idea of like what you liked, didn't like, what more you want from us. So we'll definitely come up with better and more stuff. I shouldn't say better, I should say more content for you guys and classes and education and stuff. But we'd love to hear your questions, even if we don't get to it right at this particular moment. So like I said, we'll answer 1 or 2 more, and then we do have to kind of wrap up here.
Okay, so Rachel's question is, how do I prove it fees in a hearing for attorney's fees? So there's a couple ways that I do that. If it's a smaller case where if it's a restraining order, then I'll just quote my flat fee and say, look, I only charge $2,500 to prepare for and to handle the TPO hearing, and I usually don't have a problem with that. If it's a longer case like a divorce case, I know from the beginning. I've taken cases with no money from my client because I know the other side makes a ton of money. And I also know that if I billed hourly, it's possible that I could make more. So what I do is, and this all goes back to having systems, I do not track my time as I go along, but I also don't have to because I use Monday.com as my task management system. And then there's just a couple of systems that I use, which honestly kind of keep track of everything for me. So if I do have to account for it hourly, which is frankly the easiest way for me to get fees in a divorce case, my paralegal can go through, look at Monday.com and everything I've done. Everything is time-stamped. So it shows when I started a task and when I ended a task. So even though I'm not actively recording my time, she can easily go back and recreate it. Okay, so someone asked, I'm gonna get back to Joseph's questions, but Sharmila asked, how do I deal with withdrawing in a flat fee case? Do I have to return the fee? And the answer is absolutely not. So with the stages of the case, if I'm going to withdraw from a case, I just, as a moral matter, like to wait until there's a natural breaking point. There have been clients that I've absolutely hated going into a mediation or a few weeks before mediation. I will suck it up and make sure I make it through the mediation and then withdraw. But in my stages, that's usually where the breaking point is anyway, because I charged a flat fee up front. I charge for mediation preparation and going to the mediation. So if they've paid those fees, I can withdraw at that point because they haven't paid me for something that I haven't done. The overall rule is all of my fees are non-refundable. However, I just take a more pragmatic approach to it. Obviously, if you pay me $20,000 on a divorce and you decide the next day to reconcile, clearly I'm going to refund the fee. But in general, I don't account for my time hourly if I've done a whole bunch of work, because flat fees, you're paying for predictability. So it shouldn't necessarily just work against the attorney when it's convenient for them. Because not once in 11 years of practicing flat fees in family law have I had a client come to me and say, you know what, this case took a lot longer than I think both you and I anticipated. Why don't you go ahead and run the bill hourly and then I'll just pay you the extra money. No one has said that, and no one is going to, and no, I wouldn't expect them to. So if I price the case wrong, that's on me. If I end a case early, a lot of times that's because I do what I do. You know, I'm moving the case along. I'm the one getting it to mediation. I'm the one prepared, and it ends the case early. So that if that's a result of my efforts, what you've paid for is predictability, and that's what you've done. So Joseph asked about how do you build systems? I talk about that on my Facebook page, The Lawyer on the Beach. I have tried a whole bunch of different systems in terms of practice management. I've settled on what I like, which is not using a practice management and only using Monday.com for tasks, and then using HelloSign and Dubsado for electronic signatures and intake. I use LawYaw for pleadings. So I've just kind of created my own sort of little system because I don't see something that works for everything. So Madeline asks, I want to do flat fees in the beginning, the phases and the average of the cost. So that's a hard question to pin down, and that depends on your market. So when you price a case, you need to look at the sort of middle range of your cases. If you're going to start doing flat fees, don't start with the guy that says, you know, I've got 8 DUIs and, you know, I make $10 million and I've got 26 different businesses. That's not the case that you start with. You start with sort of middle of the road cases where it's two people, they don't really like each other, but they're not horrible to each other. You know, it's going to be semi-contested. There's going to be some contested issues, some things they're going to get along with. Start with pricing that. So I'll post some fee agreements. I always typically post Lee Rosen's fee agreement so people can get an idea of how he did it per stage. I will warn you that it's high. I don't know how he got people in North Carolina to pay $15,000 for a routine uncontested divorce, but apparently he did, because he built $1 million flat fee law firm and then sold it and doesn't have a home and just travels the world with his wife and just is living his best life. So I kind of give that to people as an example of how to structure the fees, and then you kind of pick the number. So in general, I usually start at least $75,000 to $10,000 to begin a contested divorce case with kids, and then I'll charge for mediation, and then I'll charge a flat fee. So that's when I do it by stages. But like I said, I'm transitioning over to a fee schedule where the $10,000 operates as a deposit against all the contingencies that could possibly happen in the case.
As much as I'm sure that we both and the rest of us would like to keep this conversation going, I hate to be the party pooper here. We really appreciate your guys' engagement and participation. If you have more questions, please keep them coming. You can reply to any of the reminders you got from me about, you know, the link to log on, and so they all come straight to me. We'll keep them compiled and running, keep the conversation going. Thank you guys. No, we appreciate it. We'd love to stay in touch. So Regina has given you the link to her Facebook group, so you can keep in touch with her that way. You've gotten emails from me, so we'll keep in touch that way. Social media wise, if you're an Instagram user, I'm Trademark Lawyer Lady, and Regina is Georgia Divorce Lawyer. So let me put those in. If you guys are into that, Georgia, that's right? Divorce Lawyer.
I think so. I don't use it that much. And
or
absolutely.
Can we leave it off?
I am definitely not the example for Instagram at all.
Same. I mean, I use it to share my life, and I like
Yeah,
to
it's
talk
Georgia
about
divorce lawyer. That's it.
you know, and I like to just share stuff, but you know, we'll keep in touch that way. And for most importantly, we are going to send you the replay and the slides, but it will also include a survey. We just want to hear what you liked, didn't like, what more topics we can serve you on and help you with. And if you could just be so kind to spend a couple minutes on that. And like I said, offer still stands that the first 5 people to return the survey back will get a copy of Profit First delivered to their office from me. That being said, please give us till over the weekend to get you the replay and the slides. We got an unbelievable amount of registrations, and we just need to download, zip up the recording, and get it to you in a downloadable format. So we'll have that to you definitely by Monday. But otherwise, we really appreciate it. Thanks for spending some time with us on a Friday. More to come.
Yeah, everybody have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome.